Today's special guest is Max Brandt, and he is a wealth of information on grants. He's written several books. He's worked with tons of organizations. I'm going to leave all of his information below in the description. But today we are talking about grant basics, grant reporting, and even regranting. So I've broken this video up into chapters. But with that, let's welcome Max. Okay, well, welcome, Max. We're going to talk about grant reporting today. So do you want to quickly just give us a little overview of who you are and what you do?
Okay, well, thank you for having me, first of all, and it's a wonderful opportunity to share about grant reporting. And going into that matter, I've been doing grant reporting for a long time, from grantees as well as from charities. And I started off in Washington, D.C. I went to school there, and then I joined a development bank that does a lot of work with charities and with NGOs and with different initiatives in order to develop different parts of the world. And then that's how I met the charity world and the NGOs and all these initiatives and cause-driven organizations, etc. So ever since then, I've been working in institutional development. I did it for Habitat for Humanity, for WSBA, for the Peace Corps, and having a strong relationship with your donors, having a strong relationship between your operational team and the donors and the donors' needs. So I would like, in this conversation that we're having today, to develop or to give a few pointers on that direction.
Yeah, no, I understand relationships are so important. And then personally, grants are probably my least favorite thing to do because of the technical parts, the outputs and the measurements and how you organize all of that information in a way that the foundations or the grant providers want.
Absolutely. And you guys in cause specialists, I mean, in having all the digital support that you can have. Right now, you can go and grab all those outputs and outcomes right from the field. I mean, there's so much you can do, and you can make it fun. You can make it into a goal objective driven organization with teams getting involved in the solution and also in the KPIs. So let me just give you just a brief idea of what outputs and outcomes are. So outputs are really what you do. What you guys do is if you deliver lunch, if you provide vaccines at the community level, well, those are the numbers. What is it that you do? You vaccinate a number of people, weekends, during the day. Okay, what are those numbers? So in order to do that, you need to record. And most of us do it in our operational side, right? So outputs are really simple. If you teach English as a second language or something else, okay, it's the number of classes, it's the number of students, it's maybe geographic area that you cover, et cetera, but it's basically what you actually do every day in your cost-driven organization. Now, outcomes is a little different. Outcomes require a human behavioral change, and human behavioral change would be like, okay, so I teach or train in foreign language, or so I provide these classes and I provide many students, so I have that. Okay, what is the human behavioral change? What's happened to those students? What has been done in a different way? If you are in public policy, you're trying to change public policy for your stakeholders, well, then is how much are you moving public policy? How much are those stakeholders being noticed by public policy? And maybe maybe some public policy has been enacted in the name of those stakeholders. So if you're working in affordable housing, well, here it would be, not only did I build so many homes and I helped so many families with so many individuals, outputs, but then there's other indicators I should say, well, have they improved in their schooling? Do they have, because they have the space now, do they have better grades? Or how do you measure the long-term impact on children? So those would be the outcomes. And basically, you're trying to measure some kind of human behavioral change.
Okay. And indicators, that's another one that I always struggle with.
Yes, and the KPIs are really the summary of this, right? So it would be, in a simple way, number of attendees for a given workshop in something that you are sharing with the community, or number of lunch that a number of people you've helped with lunch in your community. So the KPIs are really resemble what is an output and an outcome.
All right. Sorry to hijack our talk here, but these are the areas that I personally struggle in with grant writing. It's just not my favorite thing to do. I like to tell the story. I don't like all the technical details.
Absolutely, but but you can make it fun too. Look, if you develop a framework, I usually do is I develop a simple framework of 7 steps. My theory of change. What is it that I'm trying to change? And then I say, what are those indicators that are going to meet the requirements that I want for this theory of change? So, for instance, okay, I'm gonna fix a bridge. So, how many people am I going to be helping? So I put these steps, then I define the key performance indicator, the number of people that will cross the bridge. And then I choose some kind of data collection system, so I could go to some kind of secondary source and find out how many people cross that bridge, et cetera, et cetera. Once I do that, I put it in writing, and then I started storytelling. I'm sorry. And then I started, I put I copy paste, and then I start writing, starting from those points, because it makes it easy for me as well. So I start maybe from the KPIs. But look, here's something that you should do, and we should all do. First of all, and we spoke about the importance of your relationship with your donor, right? So what are the donor's needs? And this is an exercise I can do with my board, with my volunteers, by myself, with my team. I can do it online today, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So first of all, the donor's needs, the application process, the getting to know them. Where did I meet them? Why am I connected with them? Did they make a call? Did they an open call for proposals? What are they trying to achieve, etc. So that's the first one. That's the rapport that you need to have with your donor. But then you go into the quantitative indicators. We already said number of homes, the number of homes that are. But then the qualitative, and let's look at it from a great opportunity. The qualitative says how many women are in that home, how many children, why is it helping them? There's so many hypotheses that probably you already developed when you were speaking with your team about how to do this grant, how to respond to this opportunity. And so many of them also come from your cause, right? From your vision, your mission, your values, but also your capabilities. Where do you situate yourself in that issue itself? And so the qualitative give you the opportunity to develop all these other subject matters, right? So it's a gender issue. Is it how are you going to measure improvement in education starting from an improved housing condition? You probably ask yourself, if you're in the affordable housing sector, well, what am I doing here? Why is their livelihood, aside from and on top of the new house or the improved house, what is it that we are changing? And children have their own KPIs, and you have your own KPIs, and placemaking, making the neighborhood better, safer, etc. All of those, you have the opportunity to breathe. So I always call it show your pride. Show your pride. I mean, that's what you're actually doing. And then, as I said, attributes. Try to use good attributes. If there is a new donor and you already have your system, all you need to do is add on a couple of attributes to your tool, and that'll make it tuned in or center in that donor's needs.
Okay. Well, we've talked about how to put together a good grant. So let's talk about the importance of the grant reporting now, once we've actually received the grant.
Great. in my experience, grant reporting, it's a great opportunity. In the first report you send in is key in this, making a better relationship with your donor, responding to their needs. A lot of projects, I've done projects in the Caribbean, in Mexico, thousands of homes being built, etc. A lot of times when you have a good relationship with the donor, it helps you so much to bring friends, bring other parties that they'll help you, but also extend the relationship. Now, in order to do that, the first tip would be designate someone that is going to have that conversation, especially with high net worth individuals, TV or movie stars. That those relationships are very, they should be managed by someone. And then develop your own KPIs for the reporting. You don't want to be late. You don't want to have last time issues. A lot of the time you're spending, millions of dollars probably, in some project. And then the times they eat your day, you're busy all day. You're busy all day doing the operations that you don't think. So you need to be very good at setting those times and holding at those times. A Gantt chart may help you on that. And it also helps you. And here's the tip: when you have a good grant report, it means that you have a good reporting system in your charity. Okay, so it helps you there because, okay, am I lagging behind? My commitment was 5 homes in 2 months. It's 2 months. And then you can even develop a plan B. We did. In Mexico, we had issues with certain groups that couldn't go at certain time, but we needed to meet the donors' needs, that it was at a certain time they needed to have these homes finished. So plan B was hiring a construction company that was also certified in terms of social and et cetera as a construction company. So that really helped because we needed to meet the times. If you're with corporate donors, large corporate donors, they're probably going to include that in some kind of campaign, information, campaign out on the public. So they need to have those numbers. So, having that relationship and being careful about that relationship, then, you should try to have a report tool by donor, right? So you have the reporting tool. It can be as simple as an Excel sheet, but have it, inform, be on time. That's usually the problem. When I ever ran into an issue, it was about, but I thought you were going to send, but things like that. And then you don't meet the requirements. And remember, all of the data comes in the agreement. You apply for this grant. They told you what are your outputs, what are your outcomes. Okay, report on those that you already identified. And the other tip would be, when you have projects with multiple donors, and we all do, and that's life, right? I mean, you may have a good program that you run year round, and you have multiple donors. You have small, you have corporate, and then you have high net worth individuals, etc. Well, try to come up with one tool that will help inform all those donors. So put in one framework all those individual donors' needs. You're going to find out that about 60% it's the same data, so it can be shared, right? And then there is also a good number of, and this happens with foundations a lot, that they share the same reporting tool. So if you've been around and you responded to one grantee, it could well be that they're going to be asking for the same data. So that would be another tip. And then if you have a large project where you need to respond for, like this project in Mexico with homes, there were so many that we decided to go and analyzing, year round, the processes. So we turned the project into processes. So we needed, for instance, an example, we needed to have a site to build 2 months before the construction began. That's one piece of data that will help you, and it can go in this matrix, and that will help you have those flags, those red flags, those issues that you need to solve. So that would be with a major, with a large project. Try to have that in mind and develop that capacity in order to understand all those red flags, because it can get really big with lots of donors.
I've seen some cases where the reporting is so complex that the grant itself is not really worth it. Just for some of those smaller grant amounts. I mean, we're here in Canada, but I've seen $5,000 grants with this extremely cumbersome reporting method that it's just not.
Yeah, and it's good to have your own, because you can offer that to the donor as well. But I agree. Now, if you make it simple, I ran a small grant program with WSBA, and it was mainly a capacity building. So it was for, equipment that you probably needed, or so it was specific on that. And the grant reporting wasn't so much into the processes, because that's what you're saying, right? If the grant is to pay for the process, then it's so many metrics. But I would keep it simple. It has to be simple, because it has to be useful as well. If you have a $10,000 grant, well, how specific do you need to be? I don't know, but probably you need to know your KPIs. Your outputs are going to be simple, but your outcomes. And that's where you're going to show your pride as well, because you're going to say, well, with this little amount, look at what we did.
Yeah. Because we have a lot of government grants here in Canada, and they have their own grant reporting system where we have to enter all of our information into their system. And that's where it can get quite cumbersome with how they want and then how they ask the questions. And it can be a bit of a nightmare sometimes.
We had a grant with a couple of governments, local governments, and in order to apply, we needed to send letters signed. But, they came up with this system that you could upload it once, with the application. So also, technology is getting everywhere. So I guess, we're trying to improve on it.
So, I love digital fundraising and digital marketing. Are you finding that a lot of grantors are open to infographics and videos and that type of grant reporting?
Absolutely. I used to get pictures and infographics, explaining. Maybe they used to use some parts of their own reporting inside. They had to write a report for the board, etc. They would use some of that, and they would include it. But yes, of course, videos. It's got to be simple. I knew an organization that used to get, in order to gather information, it was just instant messaging. So yes, but as you say, in terms of, I think donors right now, they want you to do the work, and maybe to some extent in the application itself, they measure the level of capacity that you have in order to respond to the specifics, right? So, and maybe that's a reason why sometimes we stay away from certain grants.
Yeah.
If they require so much work that is not really worth the effort, investment in time.
Anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to add?
Yes. If you get a grant and you decide to re-grant, I was going to say that that's another technique, especially if you can really locate or you can cover the geographic area. it's good to have that opportunity. So you may be helping some population that you know there is organizations already doing that. You can also re-grant part of your grant. And it's a technique that is perfectly acceptable. I did it because I understood that the resources were better used. For instance, in training in communities. We did it with the tourism sector, and we were trying to train local communities in order to take advantage of the job opportunities that the tourism sector was bringing to the area. It was more expensive if we were going to go over there and build the capacity and establish that relationship, etc., than if we re-granted to an organization that was probably already doing that. And on the other hand, they were already established. We could talk about what were our objectives, and they would become their grant reporting KPIs. And so re-granting. Think about that when it makes sense. A lot of traveling doesn't make sense sometimes. You said it yourself. I mean, the cost. We should measure that. And especially nowadays with digital, there's so much you can do. Providing health services, well, you can provide, online certain services with and relate with the community, with the person in the community, etc. Bringing maybe an opportunity there, but not necessarily establishing and building the whole capacity in the location. So that's it's a great tool for that.
Yeah, and I know a lot of donors like to see collaboration. I've been part of joint grant requests where two charitable organizations got together to apply for a grant.
We were with Habitat for Humanity and around 8 other organizations, Cities Alliance, the World Bank, etc. We worked together in a grant in order to create the Urban Practitioners Hub. UHPH.org, and it's a place where we realized that urban planners and the science wasn't meeting the practitioners. There was a gap there, and we created this platform that it runs labs, et cetera. So we joined forces with other NGOs, with other organizations in order to get, because the capacity needed a large grant. So it's a great tool. And for instance, we were able to see where we wanted to locate from all the partners. Where was probably the cheapest? Where was it that we had the best services? I'm talking about what city, because the project at the end, the platform was sitting somewhere and was being run by staff people. So we were able to do that and take advantage of those differences.
Well, that's fantastic.
Don't complicate yourself with the grant reporting process. When you've written the grant proposal, that's the time for the big idea, right? Well, translate that. Try to make it fun, make it like the end of the day results. Here we are. Maybe a video. Why not? Let's be innovative and use all the logistics that the digital world and the digital areas give you. Take advantage of those and be creative. A lot of, with COVID and the pandemic, a lot of grantees relaxed their own ways, and they started accepting videos, etc., knowing that people didn't have access to everything else. So yes, and make it fun. Don't make it something dragging that it's the last thing I want to do, and that's why I leave it for the end. Try to just do a little bit every week or every month, and you'll be okay.
Well, thank you again. It was lovely to chat with you. I learned a lot, so thanks again.